Hello everyone, this is Ben Ryder from the Academy of Gaming, Film and Animation, and today what we're going to be looking at is modeling this Marshall amp here. Now this is going to be a good test to go over some of the skills that we've already learned and some of the more advanced skills that we've introed but haven't gone into too much depth just yet. So first thing first, when we're looking here at our Sketchfab thing, there's a couple of things we can do to try and get a better idea about how they modeled this model. So if you click here on this model inspector, you can actually bring up all of these different layers. So you can look at the base color, and if you click here on the 2D, you can actually see the UV map, which we'll go into later in the course when we start talking about UV maps. You can look at the metalness, which is how shiny some of these things are when it comes to reflecting light. The roughness, how smooth or rough a surface is. The normal map, which gets us all these extra details and bumps. And the ambient occlusion map, which looks at some of these smaller sort of shadow spots to make them pop nicely, and the specular, which we don't really use too much in this particular model. But the wireframe is the one that's actually really useful, because even though, and I'll just make sure you ignore these diagonal lines, that's not how they've modeled it, that's just how it's exported out of whatever modeling program they have, but it lets us see some of the more primitive shapes that are underneath and how they might have modeled them. So you can see that these beveled edges on the side here are a separate sort of model. The knobs are a separate model. The wire that's coming out is a separate model. So, you know, this is all really good to know for later on when we start modeling it for ourselves. So the other thing you can do is MatCap just lets you look at the model without any textures on it, but with a bit of lighting on it, is you can then take screenshots and then actually put them into Maya. So one way you can do that is, I've just saved these out before. If you click here on this to get the quad view here, we can then go view, image plane, and import image, and just import any of our images in. You'll notice that I've got a Maya project already set up and set to that in order to be able to see these in the source images folder. So this is the front view, so I'm going to go front here, and then I'm going to go to the one over here to image plane and import, and go side, and then up here on the top, same thing, import, just with top. Now I don't put one in here because it locks to whatever camera you've imported it into the view of. So if I did one here on view, it doesn't matter where I look, I'd always see a background image, which isn't exactly what we want here. But as you can see, some of these need a bit of resizing as well. So I'm going to select these two here and bring them up so that they're on the ground. I'm going to start looking at, okay, which ones need to be resized. So this one needs to be resized here, so I'm just going to scale it up a bit. And then I'm just going to pull that back and be like, yep, that's looking like it's roughly the right scale. Maybe you just need to go up a bit more. Again, this is a guide, nothing perfect, because it's always going to have a bit of distortion based on the fact that I took it with a regular camera, not an orthographic camera. And I'm going to move this to the back here. Cool. So now that I've got those in place, we can get the size and proportions in place. So I'm just going to go here and select a cube. And again, I'm just trying to check some of these orthographics here. So this one, I think, needs to come over just a bit so it's more centered up. So we'll just scale this out to around about that size. And yep, it's just a little bit taller here, so not a perfect cube. And then on the side here, you can see that I can't quite see it underneath. So what I can do is I can go here to shading and go X-ray. And I can do that for all of them just for this particular point. And now I can see the orthographic image underneath, so I can just move it across and size it in. So if all you're learning at the moment is how to move and size shapes, this is a good exercise for that as well. But we've got a basic shape in there now. So before we get onto the cables, we're going to look at is, how to use the edge loop tool, extrude tool, and bevel tool. So I like to leave the bevels till last, and the reason being that once you start beveling, like I could just start, just beveling these in to the edges here, what you may find is, first of all, you get these n-gons, which you don't like, but also you may want to bevel something later, and now you can't because you've already done that once and trying to put those in afterwards. So you want to be sure that you've got your entire shape and form in place first, and then start beveling. So, even if I select all of these and bevel, it's not going to be really that sort of thickness to the bevel that I want anyway. So we might as well start off with our loop cuts and extrudes. Get the overall form first and use bevel at the end. So I'm going to go over here to Mesh Tools, insert Edge Loop, and I'm just going to put in the brackets of where I want this to extrude in for the speaker here. So If I click here, that's going to be right in the center. And I can actually click just Control B to bevel that, and that will actually just sort of split that up into two. Or I could, and I get my insert tool here, double click on this and go down to multiple edge loops and put in two. And then I know, yep, those are two equally spaced. So now I can just go to the scale tool, slide these across like so, and I know they're even. And if my orthographic's not lining up, then I need to look at the orthographic itself, and as I can see in the background there, it's not quite centered on, so I'm just going to move that across. If I got a wireframe, I can see what the background image there is, which unfortunately is blue, which is the same color as the wireframe, so that's making things interesting. But yeah, then I'll just maybe just scale this out just a bit and then adjust those. But again, we're getting the basic proportions. It's not going to be perfect. So then I'm going to just put another edge loop in here. Go back to just one. And then just bring that down here. And I'm going to have another one up here as well for the top, which is a bit thinner. Good, excellent. So now that I have these, I'm just going to extrude this in and move it in like so. I'm going to actually go back to my reference image now and have a look at how deep it is. It's quite deep, so I'll pull that in just a bit more. Cool, and that's there, but I also notice, if you look closely here, it looks more like it's a texture more than anything else. But yeah, I think it is just a texture, so you can sort of see this bit of a ripple thing. So you could bevel it in a bit more if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave it as is because I think it's fine. And we'll come back to this later on when we start texturing things anyway. So there is one more thing though. At the top here, you can start to see this little sort of indent here. So again, we can just get our edge loop tool, put that there. I'm going to just duplicate that so that I can actually now. So again, if I just scale this out and then grab this face in here and move that in, I can start to see, okay, yep, that'll get us that lip there. Cool, excellent. So that's good for that. So as I said before, we can now start looking at the bevels of these edges so that it's not so boxy and everything. So this is where I now start going around and holding down Shift and double clicking to try and select around the edges wherever I can, wherever those edge loops are and wherever they break. So, and you really want to do these all at the same time. You don't want to do them one at a time because you want to bevel all of them evenly. Across the top here as well. Cool, excellent. I think that's all of it. So I can't see any other parts that I've missed. Good, excellent. So I'm now just going to go Control B to bevel and go hit a fraction and just look at the amount that I can bevel that. And yep, that's looking pretty good. Cool. So the next part I want to look at is these little edges, these little clips here. So to do that, I'm going to get the edge loop tool in again, and I'm just going to start bracketing it off a bit so that I've got an idea about where I want those to appear. So I'm actually just going to select the whole thing and then just deselect these two here. So they're the only ones that are different there, and I'm just going to move this in to where I think that bracket would be. Yep, that looks good. And then just do the same for the other side here. Scale that to make sure it's straight, and then pull it there. Cool, excellent. All right, I reckon I've got enough now to do that. So I'm just going to press Control 1 to get rid of those reference images so I can start focusing on the model. And then I think we actually might need one just across here. Yep. And these ones already have one down here, so that's fine. Cool, excellent. So if I hold down Tab, oops, that's good because I can just do that and it just automatically only selects the camera, so it doesn't select anything behind it, which is good. And here as well. Again, I might have to change the size of these afterwards, but we'll just get them out first and then we'll go from there. So there's one more tool I'm going to pull into this that we have looked at in the list, but you know, is worth just having another look at here as well. And that's the detach tool. And that allows us to select these faces, and instead of extruding them and complicating our geometry, we're just going to basically take the faces and duplicate them, so that we can then use those shapes to form our brackets, but not have to worry about UV mapping them all as one object. So we're going to go here to edit mesh and go duplicate, which is like detach, but with just that extra step that it doesn't have any faces underneath missing. Cool, and then that's there. Then I'm just going to go, and in fact, if I hide this, I can just box select all of those, go combine, and then I'm going to press Control 1 again. If I still can't see it, go back, press H. If anything disappears with that, you can always just go here to display and show all. Just remember to hide these, because these are your cameras. If you delete them, your windows will disappear. And they're pretty tricky to get back, so we won't do that. But if we go here, and now we just select that one there, we're just going to scale it in slightly so it's right on the edge of that mesh, and then go Control E to extrude again, and then pull out slightly on the blue arrow there to sort of give us that edge there. That's just there, they're there, and now we have those in place. So that's good. So the knobs are just simply just grabbing a cylinder and just resizing them. I'm going to actually change down the subdivisions to 8 just to make it a little bit simpler. If you can save faces wherever you can, it's always good, best practices, especially when it comes to game design, because you want as smaller size files as possible. So saving on small little details like this is always good practice. So I'm just going to move that to there. I'm just going to Control D to move that one across there, and then one more for that one. And then I'm going to move this one over here, scale it up a bit because it's a bit bigger than the other ones. And then we'll just need one for the jack here as well, which, as you can see, is already pretty boxy as well. I think that's 6 actually, to be honest. So yeah, that's good. Excellent. All right, so just now want to make sure that they're all plugged in. They're not floating in space. Cool, excellent. And that one's a bit smaller than the other one, so we'll just scale that down like so. Cool. Excellent. And the rest of it will all come into the texturing when we get to that part of the course. For now, I'm just going to leave it like that. So just having a look here. Yep. So that top felt a bit thin before, but looking at it now, that's exactly how it is. So that's good. Excellent. All right. So now let's go to the sweep mesh. So we introduced this tool before, and basically it's just taking these curve tools here and then turning them to a solid polygonal object. So we're going to go over here now. I'm actually going to use the pencil tool. And just as before, rather than going into here and then drawing it and then trying to circle it around just to find out, oh, it's only on one mesh and wow, it's all really a lot thicker than I imagined it to be. What we're going to do is just start here at the top, and then we'll bring it up to plug into there. So again, I don't have to trace this because again, it's just, you know, a reference, but it can just sort of give us a bit of an idea. Cool, there we are. And it can go to control vertices, and then yeah, the pencil tool tends to add a lot of vertices, which can be a blessing and a curse. But anyway, we've got that there. I'm going to grab these here and then move them up to where the 1.4 jack would be. So just down a bit, across. In fact, I can just line it up here and then line it up across here. And there we go. Excellent. So there's our cable. I'm just going to grab this control point here, move it out a bit more, maybe move it out like so. You can see that this probably needs to come out a bit more. There we go. Cool. Excellent. So yeah, once we're happy with that, we can then just go ahead, select that, and go create sweep mesh. Now it's going to come out by default quite large. These little squares here are actually centimeters, so what we're working with is really small. So you just have to remember that whenever you generate something or create something, it's always going to be very big. That's why. So we're going to scale this down, but as we scale it down, we notice it's a bit clunky and everything, so we're going to increase the precision. Not too much, because again, we want to save polys wherever we can, but just enough that we can get the impression there of a cable. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, and I was being really particular, I could go back here and open up wireframe and get those control vertices and make sure there's not overlapping. So where there's that, I might bring that up a bit there, and bring that up a bit, just to make sure that they're overlapping but they're not running through each other, because that's not exactly how wires work. So you want your cables to not be over the top of each other. So it is just an extra thing, but it's also illustrating again the advantage of using sweep meshes over just trying to extrude it yourself. We not only very able to quickly create it, but also very quickly modify it, which is the whole name of the game when it comes to 3D modeling, so that when you're working with a client, if they say, oh, I just want that cable to be a bit thicker, then you can just go ahead and just go, okay, well, here's the cable, let's go to the sweep mesh here, and let's just change that and make that thicker if we need to. Or if they want it to be, thinner, then you can just do that as well. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to look at in this particular lesson, is just how to use those tools, use that sweep mesh tool, and do all that. You can obviously take this a little bit further, tidy it up a little bit more, but those are the tools that we're looking at as a start of our glossary, and any extra after that is a bonus. But anyway, if you have those, make sure they're entered in. If not, maybe go back and have a play, and then also put that in as another entry, because the main ones we need are edge loop, which is this one. We want bevel, which is this one, to rounding off the edges. And then we also want extrude, which is this one here. And you'll notice that they have shortcuts because they're used so often. Any 3D modeling tool, if you know those three tools, then you're off to a good start. So any extra ones there, like for example the to duplicate or detach and bridge and all those ones, if we have those, fantastic. But if not, if the only ones we look at are edge loop and bevel and extrude, then you're off to a good start. Cool, excellent. So thank you for watching this and for taking the time to have a go at modeling this particular asset. Excited to see what you come up with and what you're able to produce. So we'll see you next time.